experiment. All it is, I'm going to ask you a series of questions and just ask you to think about those questions and consider them. Give me your answers.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm working on a hypothesis, and it's just around that to see if I can go some way to proving my hypothesis to have some accuracy or not. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So it's working on a hypothetical scenario. So if you say you're both, if you can imagine that you're both office workers, you're working in an office, you're due to finish, it's 10 to 5. However, you get a notification, a police officer comes into the office and says there's been an incident outside, you're not going to be able to leave the office, unfortunately, I'm afraid, until at least 10 p.m. This evening. So you're going to have to stay. And there's you and there's about 10 or 15 other workers who this affects. So you already possibly feeling a little bit hungry, you know, it's certainly an inconvenience. You appreciate that something's gone on outside and no one can come in, no one can leave for that period of time. It gets to about half 5 and the officer comes back in, he says, we have actually sorted some nourishment for you, you know, something to eat. And in this office, if you've ever been to a passport office where it's got the different booths, and they're separated, and you can probably hear some goings on, but mostly you can just, you can hear the person that's talking to you. And someone comes to you and they says, would you like a sandwich? Okay. Can you think of a particular sandwich that your preference that you like?
Egg mayonnaise.
Okay. All right, so we go with that one then.
Yeah,
Go with
okay.
that one. Well, the person says, I've got this sandwich, they show you the sandwich, but the only way that you can have this sandwich is if they bring out a little baby chick and they say, I'm putting this into this blender and I want you to push the button on that, and if you do that with the chick, you can have the sandwich. What would you do?
I'd go hungry.
You go hungry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
yourself, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is that?
I couldn't do that.
No.
It wouldn't be acceptable.
No. But you know you're going to have to wait till at least 10 o'clock before you can go
Yeah.
home and get anything else.
I think I've got enough weight
Yeah,
to
it'll be all right.
carry it through.
All right, fine. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. You leave that booth. One of your other colleagues goes, and they come back and they say, "Oh, I've just done this thing. I've eaten this sandwich. I was really hungry. This is about 6 o'clock by this point, and you won't believe what I had to do. I had to push this button on this blender and put this chicken, but I did it because I was really hungry." What would you think about? What do you think about that?
I'd be pretty disgusted, actually.
Oh, yeah, probably. Yeah.
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 All right.
Yeah.
Fine, thank you. I appreciate that. So the next thing is, it gets to about 7 p.m. You're still hungry.
Yeah.
You've still got the option to go back for that. Other people have actually done that as well as your colleague as well. They've gone and had that sandwich. They've gone and pressed that button, blended up that chick alive. Anyway, you get another call. You go to one of the booths, and on this occasion they say, "Are you thirsty?" And you are pretty thirsty. And they say, "Okay, we've got you a drink. Is there any particular drink you like?"
Lemonade.
Lemonade. Okay. And they say, "Okay, you can have this drink of lemonade, but before you have this drink, what you have to do is something for me." So they bring out, they ask you to come a little bit away into the back. There's a little calf, a baby cow, and say, they give you a little gun, and they say, I want you to shoot that calf in the head, and you can have that glass of lemonade. What do you do?
I'd go thirsty.
You go thirsty.
It's only 5 hours, isn't it? You
Yeah.
said?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go thirsty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I appreciate that. I'm just wondering if you have got any questions for me about why I'm asking these questions at all, about this scenario. So anyway, just before you do that, ultimately, 10 o'clock comes and you can go home and you can sort yourself out. You don't have to do any of that. I'm just wondering if you've got any queries about why I'm asking these rather bizarre questions, or
It's like a
seemingly bizarre questions.
I can't say it, vegetarian questions.
Is it to do with food processing?
Yeah, it is. It's about. I'm not here really. I have got a hypothesis, because my hypothesis is that. Well, I'll come to that actually. I'm not going to share that just now. I'll come to that in a minute or two. But essentially, the first scenario was what one of the many, quite abhorrent, I would put to you, processes responsible. I'm glad you chose an egg sandwich actually, because for eggs, that's something that happens. RSPCA approved every single day, every single second of every single day. Do you know much about the egg industry?
Only so, obviously seen stuff in the paper. It's not a great.
So in order to get eggs, what they do, and this is universal really. Like I say, in this country, it's RSPCA approved. You can even go on the website,
Yeah.
and they will say that shredding chicks is part of what they do, and they approve that. They believe that's the most humane thing to do, because the male chicks
The male ones, yeah.
are considered useless for the industry. Because they're a slightly different colour at the hatcheries, they separate them out, and they have conveyor belts, and they literally just throw them all on one if it's male and on the other if they're female. And the males along the conveyor belt, and they go into a big macerator. That's what they do. That's typical. Some other things they do, sometimes they put them in bags and they suffocate them, or gas
Yeah.
chambers are still a thing, I'm afraid. So they do that as well, but routinely, probably the quickest, most efficient way is into these big macerators. Also in the egg industry, for the females, one thing they do is if they're in cages, or even if they're so-called free range, which isn't really free range, it's just huge barns
Yeah.
with thousands and thousands of hens in, is standard practice is they cut their beaks off.
Yeah. So they
Stops
can't
them from
peck
pecking each other. Yeah, that's one of the things that they do. They've also been genetically modified to lay a ridiculously large number of eggs, because in the wild they would have only laid about 12 eggs. And it's a similar sort of cycle as a human female, but they've been genetically modified to lay, an egg every day.
Right, yes.
As soon as their egg production slows down, which is typically about 18 months to 2 years, what do you think happens to them then in the egg industry?
Then they end up
Killed
in the
off
meat
or-
industry.
They get killed.
Yeah.
They don't actually end up in the meat industry, because there's a different type of broiler chicken that's for meat. They're much fatter.
It's end up in
And the other
dog
one,
food or something.
pardon,
Dog food.
pet food and that
Pet
type of
food,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about that as a one sort of example of an industry? Is that something that you feel comfortable with? When I found out about this, and I realised I don't need to have eggs,
Yeah.
I thought I don't want to be any part of this.
No.
And someone helped me to understand, and that's why I'm here today, to raise awareness really. The other example that I gave you about the drink, it's a bit abstract talking about lemonade, but what I was really talking about was cow's milk,
Right.
because the dairy industry, well, I'll ask you what might seem an obvious question, but for me it wasn't obvious at the time. I only found out a number of years ago. Why do cows produce milk?
Well, because they've had a calf and then they take it away.
Yeah,
And then they
yeah,
keep producing the milk.
for their calves. So, do you think farmers wait around for cows to get pregnant, or do you think that they do something else instead?
No, I presume
They do something that they
Yeah.
artificial
Artificial
insemination, they
insemination,
call
yeah.
it. Forcible impregnation,
Yeah.
really. It's essentially exploitation of their reproduction system, isn't it? Exploitation of yeah. And what they do, sorry to be a little bit base, but I'd rather know the truth.
Yes.
Is they masturbate a bull to get the semen. They then put a long glove on one arm, and they insert their arm with the long glove into the anus of the cow. They hold the cervix, and with the rod, with the bull semen, they insert that into the vagina of the cow. They have a 9-month pregnancy, just like a human would, and at the end of that, they will have a calf. Now the calf will be separated from their mother typically within 24 hours, because if they don't do that, they're going to start drinking the milk, and what the industries want the milk to sell to humans. If the male's born if the cow's born a male, have you got any sort of inkling as to what might happen with them?
Killed off?
I
Or?
guess it goes to does it go into the meat industry?
Yeah, well, you're both
Steel,
right.
whatever.
It's potentially either, depending on the farm.
Yeah.
Some are killed on the first day of birth, because similar to chicks, they're considered useless to the industry. Sometimes they are grown a little bit, and I believe that veal is now it's not legal in this country, but instead they ship them off to places like Belgium or Netherlands, where they put them in a dark room, shackled, for several weeks, about 4 weeks, and then they're killed. Yeah. How do you feel about that as an industry?
Not great, but we don't have obviously veal in the UK. So
I don't know. We're probably difficult because we don't drink cow's milk.
Brilliant.
we don't drink tea and coffee. So
We
it
don't
doesn't come
drink
up.
tea.
Don't you? Well, I drink oat
So-
milk or soy milk. Have you ever?
Our son has oat milk.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
and I guess on the other stuff, I wouldn't say we're massively educated, but we're educated enough that we understand most of those processes and we're aware of them. There's
Yeah.
nothing that you've said that we haven't
Read about.
You knew a bit
read
about
or
already.
knew about, or
Yeah.
I guess there's a lot of people who don't know,
Yeah.
don't want to know.
Well,
Um,
exactly. I agree.
But,
So,
but for us, it's I guess you just make your decisions on that knowledge. But I think there's a lot of people who don't know.
yeah.
But I always think mass food processing as a whole, whatever it is pretty disgusting. Like when you see the actual processes,
Yeah.
So whether they're doing something vegetable or anything, you see them making pastas and just pouring massive pots of
Industrial
industrial
scale.
sort of
type thing.
scale food processing.
I
is
agree.
pretty
I agree
horrible,
with you
I think.
because I think when
Even soup or anything, you just think, 10 tons of tomato soup and and they're pouring it out and it just looks disgusting.
I agree with you, but
So-
where I'm coming from is about in terms of fairness and treating others with fairness
Yeah.
and a right to at least having their bodily autonomy. And I agree with you about the vegetables and your pesticides and things like that. And industrial scale when things are ramped up, and how that can impact on sort of all what you were saying really about the quality perhaps of the ingredients and such. But for me it's about feeling that animals they're sentient like humans. I know
Yeah.
they're different to us,
Yeah.
of course
Yeah,
they are,
sure.
but in the ways that matter they're the same. I don't know if you've ever heard of something called the Cambridge Declaration of Consciousness. It's from, I think, when was that year? 2009, I think. And there's been another updated one, New York Declaration on Consciousness, and it's about all mammals, birds, creatures with a backbone, all sentient. They have a subjective experience of the world around them. They are motivated towards having good experiences, positive experiences, about caring for their families, the other people in their group. They try and avoid pain and suffering. They're like us, they're capable of pain and suffering as well. And they want to live and they want to enjoy their lives as best as they can. And in the same way that your dog,
Our dog.
yeah, I'm sure your dog's probably invariably got a personality of their own.
Yes.
Knows what they like and what they don't like and that type of thing. And it just seems to me quite what sort of hit home to me was we treat certain animals with love and respect, and then other ones completely disregard them.
That is
And I
true.
just thought if I can avoid that as best as I can, then I'll do that. So, yeah, where I'm ultimately leading to is, have you heard of veganism?
Yes.
Yeah. So for the last 5.5 years, that's what I've maintained, and it's it's not just about food; it's about other things. So rejecting the idea that animals are here for entertainment, to be made into leather coats, leather shoes. So that all of that as well. Would you ever consider either going that full way towards veganism or reducing, knowing what we've talked about now? And I'll give you a card to explore more information, a bit more resources in a minute, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
But have you ever thought about that? And just in the interest, because you seem like really compassionate, fair people, and you said you know a little bit snippets of it, and I think I did. If I reflect back 10 years or so, it was only when I had someone sort of in my ear talking to me a little bit more about it and really get me to sort of really think about it more deeply and acknowledge it to myself, that I thought, I don't want to be any part of this. I don't have to be. You know, things like milk. Milk is a nourishment for babies, if you think about it, really.
It is, yes.
You know, it's bizarre that we've come to a point where we've been made to feel that we need cow's milk.
Yeah.
I think not the difficult bit, but it's like when you look at the beautiful country that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
If you took away the grazing animals, the sheep, the cows and stuff, it wouldn't look anything like this anymore.
No,
it wouldn't look like that.
It would. Yeah, sorry, go on.
So from that side, not just from that side, but that would definitely change the landscape. It would be hugely different.
Yeah.
And so I guess, you know, partly that side of things is something that I guess we're just used to, and I like to see, and all that. And yeah, you might not agree with some of the processes that go on within the food industry, and I don't necessarily agree with them all, and there are certain things that we don't eat and we don't, but I think there's also a thing of a huge change of the landscape, and which would not deter me from that route, but it would certainly be a consideration and an effect of what things would look like. And
yeah, I totally appreciate what you're saying. I'm also concerned around the environmental aspects of things. Actually, there's been research. There's a meta-analysis by I think it's Oxford University, and it's actually said that if everyone stopped eating meat and supporting animal products, that we could free up 75% of land globally. It's completely unsustainable, animal agriculture. I hear what you're saying about the landscape, but the English landscape, British landscape, was nothing like it was several hundred years ago. You know, it was a lot more forests, and they're the ones that absorb the carbon. All this land, you know, animal agriculture is actually the leading cause of deforestation, loss of biodiversity. You know, in this country, if you think about like the rainforest, where they grow all the soy, I think it's between 85 and 90% of the soy that is grown, where they completely decimate parts of the rainforest, is for animal feed. There's about 80 billion land animals on the planet that are forced into existence for the purposes of using them for animal agriculture, compared to 8 billion humans. And some of these animals are really, really big as well. And then all of these animals have to be fed up, fed to build themselves up, to ultimately be killed. When you're talking about,
I mean, I think there's arguments both ways, because you look at some of the countries, where they're growing avocado and all this sort of stuff, and it's like mass deforestation there to feed a requirement for vegetable products. So I'm not sure you can just argue it from that it's all meat.
You don't have to eat avocados, do you? I don't eat avocados.
No, I don't. You do.
No, you don't have to eat chicken, do you? So
I know, but that's a different thing, though, isn't it? That's when we're talking about fairness and just the fairness of, and just the right to not kill them on the day of birth, or to just leave them alone.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But yet, you will find, for example, have you heard of the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change? It's for the United Nations. If you look on their website, they will further give you further information about what I'm talking about the devastating impacts of animal farming, actually. Talking about the runoff from the cows, the slurry from that goes into all our streams. You'll see it on the news where they talk about all our rivers are so heavily polluted and how do we tackle this problem. But they don't like to say about that a lot of this is from chicken farms, from cow farms, and then you've got all the methane that comes from from ruminant animals.
Yeah.
You'll have heard about that, won't
Yes.
you?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that, the impacts of that and global climate change as well. So all of that, honestly, the best thing that anyone can do is actually, if you want to make an impact, a positive impact globally for us, for our children, for our grandchildren, is to give up, to reject animal agriculture. It truly is. And that's just from an environmental perspective, but obviously I'm coming from a rights perspective about being fair to these animals. Okay, well listen, I'm going to give you a card if that's all right.
Yeah,
It's a little bit more resources, and it will also have, you can go on YouTube and check yourselves out on there. All right.
Okay.
So sorry it's not a very polished card, but here it says Challenge 22. That's a website that if you log on, it will hook you up. It can hook you up with a nutritionist. They can give you recipes every day about plant-based recipes, really nice recipes. This is something called The Most Important Speech You'll Ever Hear. It's by someone called Gary Yourofsky. He talks in much more eloquently than I could, in more detail around all the types of animal agriculture and all the ways that the cruel and unjust ways that animals are treated, and how it's essentially unnecessary. There's another one called Dominion. It's narrated by someone called Joaquin Phoenix. You might have heard of the actor. He's a vegan actor, yeah. And he narrates that. I couldn't watch much of that, I'll be honest with you, because it was so upsetting around. But if you, like me, couldn't watch that, you could give it a go. But The Most Important Speech will talk you through it without actually showing the graphic details. And then this is my YouTube channel, #freedom on YouTube. You can check that out.
Thank you.
Lovely. Nice talking with you. Thanks very much. All the best.
Right, have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
You too. Bye.